Hi, this is Dee at Aloha Astro, and we're looking at a new moon in Scorpio today, occurring on November 13th, 2023 at 4:27 a.m. Eastern Time at 20 degrees 44 minutes of the fixed water sign of Scorpio. Let's take a look at the forecast. New moon in Scorpio, Monday, November 13th, accentuates the contrast between what you desire, value, and believe, and what life, society, and others expect or demand from you, as the moon and the sun conjunct Mars in Scorpio form a T-square aspect pattern involving Saturn in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus, which activates an impulse to act upon or react to the building tension of this lunation. Scorpio is a fixed water sign belonging to the 8th house of sex, death, taxes, metaphysics, and the occult, business partnerships, investments, insurance, inheritance, the place where we share our values and assets and merge or protect boundaries. The planetary ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, which holds a prominent position directing willpower, determination, magnetism, instincts, and faith towards success, control, and transformation, as it sits at a center point of three minor grand trine aspect patterns, tapping into the Scorpio trio, Neptune in Pisces, Venus in Libra, Uranus in Taurus, and Mercury in Sagittarius. The light of hope and inspiration in the midst of the dark of the new moon and the pressure of the T-square is generated by Mercury trine to Neptune and sextile to Venus. As you wrestle with paradoxes or conflicts in the dark of the moon, remember that new life germinates in the yin energy of the dark. The fixed sun signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius could have a more intense and life-altering new moon than the other 8 signs, but everyone has Scorpio somewhere in the natal chart, bringing what is hidden to light. Let's take a look at what's going on here in the sky, and here you can see Pluto pretty much pulling all the strings to many other planets in the chart at the moment. We've got sextiles to Neptune, over here to the Scorpio planets of Mars, Sun, and Moon, a trine to Venus, a trine to Uranus. Here's the T-square with Saturn at that right angle, interacting with Uranus, planet of change, and the Scorpio planets. The pressure that everybody's feeling right now is the old giving way to the new, or the necessity of change. And whether we like it or not, there are probably things that will be changing, and whether we're initiating them or somebody else is initiating them, it's still going to be happening. And how we react and respond to it makes all the difference. If we can direct the attention through those minor grand trines, the 3 of them that are all overlapping here. And technically one of them is just a little bit short or wonky, because we're seeing some Mercury interjecting in here as well, tapping into Neptune. But the overall pattern is to take a higher perspective or look for the highest and best potential outcome, and then remaining in control of yourself, focusing on what you desire, focusing on your values, and then determining where you want to be in regard to everything else. Main thing, don't lose control. And control of what? Of yourself, primarily. Integrity is particularly important at this full moon, at this new moon, but specifically your own relation to yourself and what is important to you value-wise, what you can live with, not what somebody else expects from you. And that can be very liberating. But in that liberation, which we find in the opposition to Uranus retrograde, you may find that you are at odds with other people, or perhaps where you live or where you work. And in that case, it is better to be true to yourself than to modify yourself in order to fill somebody else's expectations or to pacify them and make them happy. Because if you are not happy in that particular situation, then it's not going to be happy or healthful for you. And ultimately, I think Pluto is going to pull everybody to what their true core is and what is most important to them individually. And some relationships may break and fall away based on differences in values or principles at this time because of that T-square, but it has to ultimately be for the better when things shift, because we do have these two trines tagging Pluto, which is the ruler of Scorpio. Definitely go with your instincts and your intuition while we've got this strong Scorpio-Pluto influence, and they are in sextile to each other. Mercury in Sagittarius is making that sextile to Venus and that trine to Neptune. So if there are any breakups that are occurring or moving on to something or someone else, this is going to keep you from getting stuck and mired in holding on to anything or anyone. It's literally like, okay, this is for the best. Have a nice life. I wish you the best. Goodbye. It does help with forward motion. And it also helps with, I think, making new introductions to other people that might come your way. It is a hopeful pattern of energy as well and inspiring. So if you are encountering people who are going through a hard time, you might actually be the person who is able to uplift them through communication and reminding them that there are better days to come, or that there is another way of looking at things that is more hopeful or inspired. So I do like this kind of odd man out here, because now we're moving into that Sagittarius season, and yeah, we can have a lot of, tension and gloom and doom and the dark stuff coming up in the Scorpio season, but we're already beginning to see the hope and the upliftment and the lighter side, and sometimes even the humor. If we can laugh at things that are going on as well, then we're that much closer to the forgiving, forgetting, healing, and moving on that this trine between Mercury and Neptune is offering. And there is potential for strong manifesting that can come from this particular aspect configuration with Neptune in Pisces and the Scorpio planets tagging Pluto. I do think that where there's a will, a way is ultimately found, but you may go through several options before the right thing falls into place. Don't cling to what you know is wrong, because you may be blocking the right thing. Even if you can't see the right thing yet, it will fall into place. But if you stick to something out of fear, or because it's familiar, or you're thinking, oh, well, this isn't quite right, nothing better is appearing right now, this is an energy of turning the corner. And if you look around that corner and let go, then I think things are going to work out for you for the better. Let's take a look at the Sabian symbol. And and we're rounding up to 21 degrees. Obeying his conscience, a soldier resists orders. And that very much feels like the T-square that we have going on, where both Saturn and Uranus are in tension with each other, as well as the Scorpio Sun and Moon and Mars. Keynote: a readiness to face the results of a refusal to follow the authoritarian patterns of an aggressive society. As a person finds himself involved in activities which are traditional in his particular culture, and in many instances in all societies at this stage of human evolution, he often faces a conflict between his own individual sense of value, his conscience, and the demands of society, which is pretty much what I wrote in the opening sentence of the forecast, that there is a conflict right now, and a seeking of a kind of freedom. The conflict may be most typical in terms of the armed services, thus this symbol. In it we find the individual asserting his own values, though he cannot escape the consequences of his decision. In such a case, he has to be quietly ready to face these consequences, whatever the cost. This is the first stage in the 47th fivefold sequence of phases in the great cyclic ritual of activity. The issue it presents is clear. Society in this situation seems to be all-powerful, yet the individual need not be spiritually bound. Even if imprisoned, he can still display inner freedom and prove himself an individual. Another thing that comes up is that Scorpio is often associated with sexuality, sexual magnetism, and the 8th house traditionally rules areas of life that were considered taboo to speak about in public or at the dinner table. We didn't sit around and talk openly about sex, death, taxes. There were things that were just considered taboo. They were too deep and triggering. Culture is a little bit different nowadays. Taboos, are there any? Probably very few, but the view on things right now and what is acceptable and what might be passing over those socially acceptable boundaries might come up in a broader way for society at the moment. I mean, most notably, there's a lot of military conflict going on right now. There's war, and Taurus is concerned with peace and stability and safety. Does everybody have what they need? Are they fed? Are they clothed? Do they have a roof over their head? Is it enough? Do they have enough? And Scorpio, the boundaries. And Saturn, right here, it's just come out of retrograde a week ago at 0 degrees of Pisces. Feels like it's time to maybe establish some better patterns, especially if history is repeating. And with Uranus and Jupiter still retrograde here, why are we looking at the same thing all over again? And let's approach it with a new foundation, and think about everybody's safety, security, and do they have what they need? Is it enough? And maybe the powers that be would be listening as well, because Pluto is in Capricorn and it is very well supported all the way around. So at this time, use your voice. If things are bothering you in the world at large, who do you write to? Who do you speak to? Get out there and vote. Those are the things that you can do that might make a difference. All right. Do be safe. Take care. A Scorpio lunation can sometimes just create a rather unsettled world. So be mindful, stay aware, and consider your own safety while you're out and about right now. And I will talk with you soon, 2 weeks from now, at the next lunation when we have a full moon.